Oh,
Hi, friends, and welcome to this week's class of Dead Funny University. I am your host and fellow student Kelsey, and today we are talking about Zelda, and we are bringing back our favorite teacher, our favorite visiting professor, almost tenured, but he's gotten a little bit of time off, went on a sabbatical. Chris, welcome back to Dead Funny University. How are you doing?
it has been a while. That it has.
Which has
It
got to be
has.
nice for you. You've been running our other shows, so it's got to be nice to get a little bit of a break.
Yeah, especially as we start making newer and newer ones, then it's like, okay, we got to see how much I'm actually on and what I record. Woo.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a minute. But it's good to be back. I liked it. The DFU holds a special place in my heart because it was your brainchild, and I was so proud of you. I was like, she made an amazing show.
Thank
So
you. I'm glad to
I'm
hear
always
it.
happy to be.
Well, do you have an opening quiz for me for this Zelda? We're going to do a little bit of a semester. It's going to be kind of a short semester, but it's going to be a semester on Zelda. Am I correct?
It is. So yeah, it won't be anywhere near as long as Final Fantasy. Like I said, it'd probably just be as long as one of those segments. We went through multiple different games. This we're going to be going through multiple different games, but most of it can kind of be summed up within an episode. So
Brilliant.
I don't have a quiz for you,
That's
but it's
okay.
more about going over. I figured our first episode would be a little bit of an introduction and kind of the creation of the world, show you all the different characters. A lot of this won't make sense to you right at first, but then as we go, it will start to fall in place.
Brilliant. That sounds fantastic. So let's jump in wherever you want to jump in.
So, for those of you who are watching, Zelda is my second favorite franchise of all time. Growing up, I watched my dad play two games, Final Fantasy and Zelda. So those were naturally two games that I grew up playing. Um, Ocarina of Time, probably my favorite out of the series. It is still one of the only games out there to get a 10 out of 10 from every game critic across the nation, and was the first one to start the whole Gamer Hall of Fame. So
Seriously?
pretty. Yes, it is. It's a pretty big game. It
Damn.
is loved by many people. Yeah, that is my favorite Zelda. Um, my second one would definitely be Majora's Mask. The reason why I bring that one up is because that one is known as like the hardest Zelda. Like there's people I know who play this game nonstop, like it's their favorite franchise, and they have not beaten Majora's Mask because it's that.
Whoa.
My dad never finished Majora's Mask. I got some friends who are big Zelda fans, never finished Majora's Mask. Like it's one of the harder ones for
Okay,
sure.
I'm trying to picture a world where I'm playing my favorite game and I never beat it.
Right?
And I'm going to assume that Zelda has a story, like a plot line.
Hmm. Hmm.
I would
So
eventually rage quit, put it down, and never come back. What? How? How do people continue playing it for years and not lose interest?
So what you have to so with Zelda, and this is where it gets where it's going to get crazy for you. With Zelda, it has a timeline, and the reason why we have our timeline is because Link, the main character, the hero of the game, is known as the hero of time, and the reason why is because there's different reincarnations of Link. So it's not the same guy all the way through. It's always like sooner or later he will awaken as the hero of time. He looks the same, but he will awaken as the hero of time.
Always a dude?
And always a dude. Always a
Okay.
dude. Link has only ever cross dressed. He's never actually been a female. So yeah, it's always been a guy. Um
Now, is there anything in particular? I realize I'm interrupting your lecture
no, you're good.
already, but is there anything in particular that prompts him to be reborn?
So basically, it's a curse, and we'll get a little bit more into that as we
Mm.
go on. But basically, there was a curse that was casted by the first. Well, it's actually within one of the more later games. One of the more later games actually took place all the way at the beginning of the timeline. But in one of the more later games, whenever you fight, who's not normally the big baddie, he puts down a curse that there will always be a demon in hunt for the Triforce itself, which we'll get into what the Triforce is here in a second. And because of that curse, it worked all the way around the Triforce. So there will always be the hero of courage, there will always be the hero of wisdom, and then the evil of power. which is what makes the three pieces of the Triforce.
The two heroes and an evil?
Well, I say hero, it's more of like guardian slash goddess, if you will, because she started out as a goddess and then she was reborn as like as a mortal, and we'll kind of get into that too in this episode. But basically, Zelda, the actual character Zelda, who is the princess, she is the actual wielder of the Triforce of Wisdom. So basically, she is always reincarnated as well, just like Link, just like Ganon, who is actually the bad guy. So what I've sent you so far, we got our nice little timeline. We'll visit that multiple times throughout this semester to kind of go back and look and see where we're at. What I think is cool, and if you're actually looking at this timeline, and those of you at home, if you look up the Legend of Zelda timeline from the Historia, which is an actual book that they released to help people understand the timeline that actually came from Nintendo. Actually just ordered it so that way, in case if I need it for the fucking DFU, we got it, so that'll be here tomorrow. I've always wanted it. It matches with my Ultimanias from Final Fantasy. It's these nice big hardcover leather bound books, so it looks really nice. And there's three of them. There's like the encyclopedia and then the artwork one. So I plan on getting all three of them anyway. I just wanted to get my Ultimanias first. So I was like, yeah, you know what? Now's the perfect time. But what's cool about the timeline to me is that my game, Ocarina of Time, actually is where the time officially splits. So if you're looking at the actual timeline, you'll see you have a timeline where the hero is defeated, one where the hero is successful, and then within the hero being successful, there's a timeline that's the child era and then the adult era. So it definitely splits off into different games and they all kind of wrap up. The only one that's not on here is the last game that just came out, Breath of the Wild, and that's because no one has any idea where the fuck it fits. So yeah, that one is kind of up in the air at the moment. So and
And you
this
said
one came out before the game did.
you said this is created by Nintendo?
So the
Okay.
people who made the game, this is solid facts of them saying, here's the timeline.
And Nintendo has not answered anybody because I'm sure somebody's asked, like, where does this fit in the timeline? And Nintendo's just been like, "Ha and walked off stage, like, how'd this
Pretty
go?
much. Well, because they're making, and this is actually crazy. They're making the next Zelda game is actually called Breath of the Wild 2. And the reason why that's crazy is there's never been a direct sequel in a Zelda game. It's
Ooh.
always been named something else. So you have Skyward Sword, Minish Cap, Four Swords, Phantom Hourglass. Like it's always got different names. There's never been like Legend of Zelda 2. Like it's always been a different name title because they've always wanted Link to be a different reincarnation and go through different trials and stuff like that. So it's always been different. I mean, for instance, mine, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, it's always been different names. So this is the first time we're getting like a Breath of the Wild was the last one, and now Breath of the Wild 2. So it's going to be
Interesting.
interesting.
Now, was Breath of the Wild a complete story by its because it sounds like each of these are probably complete stories and it's just the reincarnation, but otherwise it's a complete story. Is that correct?
Yep,
Is that
100%.
true for Breath of the Wild as well?
Yeah.
Hmm.
They literally ended. Like you thought it was over, and they did even stuff that had never been done in Zelda's. Like there were different endings, somewhat different endings, judging on like how many of Link's memories you were able to recover throughout the game and stuff like that, and all kinds of shit. That was pretty cool. It was their first open world Zelda, and what was also awesome about it was like it was one of those where you could kill an enemy and they would drop their weapon, and you could pick it up and use it, and like your weapon
Ah.
broke over time, your shields broke over time and stuff like that. So you constantly had to be switching stuff out and have like an arsenal with you. It was actually their first time doing that, and I thought they did really fucking well.
So, if it's a complete story and they had multiple different endings, how in the world can they make a second one? Because not everybody chose the same. Are they just
So,
going to pick one to be
well,
canon, or
with the multiple endings, what I mean by that is basically like Link and Zelda's relationship and the relationship
oh,
with the other people in Hyrule, because basically Link becomes this hero of courage and everybody gets to know him because he goes around doing all these good deeds and stuff. How many of those that you recovered and remembered judges like your relationship with Zelda and everything else, like at the end of the game, as far as that goes? The ending is still the same. You go to the tower, you beat Ganon, you shut down the all that bullshit, and then you leave. So that aspect is always going to be the same. It's more about the afterward, the aftermath once that's all over. Who is Link at this point?
okay. Now you just called Link the hero of courage, and previously you called him the hero of time. Is he both, one or the other?
So
Okay.
he's both. And so the reason why, and we'll kind of jump into that a little bit now, is that so 1,000 years before the official time split, which is my favorite game, 1,000 years before that was the actual creation of Hyrule.
Okay.
So the Hyrule was created by three goddesses, and let me send that picture to you so you got that.
And
So we got
Hyrule
three
is the
goddesses.
land, correct?
Hyrule is the land. That
Okay.
is, and there's only a there's like a couple games where you don't it doesn't actually take place in Hyrule, but Hyrule is our main map and it changes over games. There's not a specific like this is the Hyrule. It every game it looks different. It's changed up, but there's a couple games like Majora's Mask, for instance, you're not actually in Hyrule. So, but Hyrule is like the main place that it normally takes place. So we had the creation of the world by the three goddesses. We have Din of power, Nehru of wisdom, and Ferrari of courage. So if you're looking at the picture, you can kind of see, and once again, those of you at home, you can kind of just type these names in and you'll be able to find pictures of them. But
I'm gonna
red
put
is
pictures up in the
Din.
background.
Oh,
So
okay, cool. Never mind. Kelsey's got you covered. Look at that. See, I've been gone for so long.
also
Um,
shows you don't watch DFUs, so now I've learned something.
it depends. Depends on the context. Depends on the context. I'll say
It's
that much.
cool, you're
I
fine.
did watch Death Stranding, so that one I did because I hadn't seen that yet. So Din, Nehru, and Ferrari, the three different goddesses. So we've got wisdom, which would be blue, power would be red, and courage is green. They came down, they created the earth, and then after that, they're like, okay, cool, we're up out. So they go to leave, and when they do, they left a gift with the goddess Hildia. Not a lot is known about how Hildia came to be, so that's a little mystery. And we'll kind of get a little bit more into her in the next episode versus this one. But so Hildia was granted the Triforce. So the Triforce is the nice triangle that we have behind the ladies there, but I went ahead and grabbed us another picture. So with the Triforce, you got your three pieces. It looks like it's all together, but it does break apart into three pieces. I believe, if I'm correct, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, so don't fucking shoot me, but I believe the top is power, the bottom right. Oh, well, no, it's right there in front of me, Duck Chris, with
I was
the
about to
ladies.
say, you just
Yeah,
sent me this
top is
picture.
power, bottom right is courage, and bottom left is wisdom. And what's cool about that is that, so basically, if someone gets the full Triforce, it will grant any wish. But the holder of the Triforce has to have a balance of these three virtues. If they don't, the Triforce then splits apart, and the one that the virtue that that person had the most of stays with that person. The other two get shot off to two random people chosen by the goddesses of
Now,
who they feel is worthy of that virtue.
okay, so these are other people that are worthy of this that
Mm-hmm.
may have it in greater or lesser levels
Mm-hmm.
than you, but they've been chosen by basically this goes to the next person.
Right.
So you mentioned balance, meaning that it doesn't necessarily have to be your high in all three of these things. You just have to have the exact same level of these things to hold all
Correct.
three. So you could actually be
Correct.
very low, but as long as you're just not very courageous, not particularly powerful, and real dumb, then you're set.
You're set. Exactly.
Oh, that's
You're set.
terrible.
So, well, and it gets even worse. There is no distinction between good and evil either.
Oh no.
Yeah, zero distinction between good and evil. Anybody, if you're good or evil, you can have it. You just have to have the balance of those virtues. Because you can be evil and be courageous. You can be evil and be smart. You can be evil and be powerful. So, yeah, there's no distinction between good or evil.
That's real bad.
Just a little bit. But
That
what's
was
cool
a fault.
is that whenever they split it up, you know that you have it because on the back of your hand, it will actually have the Triforce like a tattoo on your hand, and
Hmm.
it will be blinking white light out of the side that you have. So in other words, like if you had wisdom, the bottom left of the Triforce would blink white light as you get closer to another piece of the Triforce, letting you know this is the piece that you are, and then whenever you get the new one, then you would obviously have multiple glowing going on and going on. So obviously, and we'll get further into that, but obviously, at some point, Ganon tried to the big baddie, which we'll go ahead and get him out here too, so you can see Mr. Ganon. But Ganon, the big baddie, tried to, do a wish. It split it up. Link got courage, and Zelda got wisdom, depending on obviously what game and different timelines and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's been locked away multiple times and everything else. And like I said, we'll kind of go into that. Because like I said, basically the way I'd like to do is we'll do this creation episode, and then we can do each episode kind of based on game per timeline, and then just make our way
Yeah.
down.
That helped me a lot because I will actually then have the
Right.
framework necessary for what you're telling me.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly. So that's why I figured I can give you all this now, and then it won't make too much sense, and then it will slowly start to fall in place as we make our way down the timeline.
So Ganon and Zelda also are consistently reincarnated, correct?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and this is Zelda, so that way you can have Zelda as well. We got you Ganon, we got you Zelda, and I was a little biased in picking these pictures. All three of them are from my favorite Zelda game. So because Link and Zelda and Ganon, they all look different game to game to game to game.
Oh,
Uh,
I didn't know that, so good to know.
Yep. And this was my favorite Link. I liked the white leggings, the white, the basically the white tights underneath the green tunic.
Mm-hmm.
Was my favorite look of Link ever, and that's from Ocarina of Time. So
I'm very
yeah,
surprised. He's not created with a lot of polygons, so I didn't think you'd like him very much.
well, you haven't seen in-game graphics yet.
That's true. These are cutscene graphics, and those are a completely different thing.
Yeah, just a little bit. So, but yeah, no. A cool thing about Zelda is because it for people who like the RPG aspect. So, for instance, like Final Fantasy, that's just pretty much your classic RPG. Whenever you look at something like Zelda, you have the running and fighting and stuff like that too. It's not turn based whatsoever. You
Hmm.
get into a fight, you got to use your shield block and attack and all that fun stuff. Link usually has like a huge arsenal. You can use bows and arrows, bombs, boomerangs. It's all stuff that you gather as you slowly get to what you want. And the main two weapons always being the same. As you can see in his right hand there, we have the Hylian shield, which is a race in Hyrule, but the Hylian shield. And then the left hand there is the Master Sword. So that is the legendary blade of the Legend of Zelda. And sooner or later, in your quests, you will come upon the Master Sword and have to use it to take down the big baddie. That is
Now,
the number one.
sorry,
Go
in
ahead.
Ocarina, no, Breath of the Wild, and does it break in Breath of the Wild, or is it the only sword that
No,
doesn't?
it's the only sword that doesn't, but it has to recharge its divine light. So you can use it for a little bit, and then like you can still use it. It just doesn't do as much damage. So you have to let it recharge its divine light to get its maximum damage out again.
So I'm noticing as I look at the Hylian shield, I believe you called it,
Hmm.
two things. A, neat bird thing, and is that one of the races that you were talking about?
That's just a symbol of the castle, which is also the shirt that I'm wearing as well.
Cool.
So
Okay. Second thing, there appears to be a fourth piece of the triangle that would fit in that little missing hole in between all the rest of them that is at the bottom.
nope,
Any way relevant?
nope, not relevant. Just design. Yep, just design, not relevant.
Not a
Uh,
great design because it looks very, very relevant.
it's not. The Triforce has never had four pieces.
Bad
Uh,
design. Make it a different color. Just make it gray at that point, like the other things, and then it's not going to look relevant. Who the hell designed that? You made a bad
right.
mistake. All right, I'm done.
But what's cool about the Master Sword is that it's usually always in the same place because the Master Sword, whenever you beat the game, the enemy normally gets sealed away within the blade. And then they put the blade back into the pedestal to basically, seal the seal, if you will, and hopefully keep evil there forever, which never fucking happens, obviously, because then there would be no more Zelda games. So
So
something has to happen.
you're sealing Ganon into the blade?
He has been sealed in there. The original demon's been sealed in there. There's another sword out there which is pretty fucking cool, called the Four Sword, and it has a different demon sealed in it. And the Four Sword, the reason why it's cool is because it actually splits Link into four versions of himself, and that was the first time Zelda was ever multiplayer. You could have your friends come over and hook up controllers into your GameCube, and all four of you could go through and play the Zelda game together because there were four different Links. So what I'm
Wait,
going to show you
weren't you
now.
always a particular Link when you did this?
Oh, I was always green. Always green.
You were
Green's
always
my favorite
green,
color.
which is
Yeah,
the normal
always green.
Link. So you were
Yep.
like, I'm player one, fuck all y'all.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There was player one was green, player two was red, player three was blue, and player four was purple.
Is
Which you
green
were
your
about to
favorite
see.
color?
Dark green is my favorite color.
I
Yep.
did not know that.
Yep. Sage green specifically is the one
Ooh,
that
I
I like
mean,
to flock to the most. But yeah,
sage green is a
yeah.
good one.
So as you can see with what I just sent you, and you can see right there on the right under the 2003 is the 4 different links. But this is the evolution of Link. So we got where he started from back in 1986, all the way up to I think this is as new as 2011. Yeah, that's the latest date I see on here, which would have been Twilight Princess. Yes, I think so.
I think it's
So
pretty clear when he goes from sprite graphics to 3D graphics, like
just a little
instantaneously
bit.
apparent.
So there was a game called Wind Waker that came out, and that would have been Mr. 2002 down there. Was the first time they ever did something like with the cartoonish type graphics. And they wanted to experiment with it, see if maybe they can get, kind of like how Final Fantasy did with the shorter characters of 9,
Hmm.
see if they can get more kids into the game as well versus just adults that want to do the RPG. And because a lot of people liked, you got your 1998 and your 2000 over there, Kid Link. A lot of people like those games. So like, well, let's see if we can do something a little cartoony. Some people didn't like it. A lot of people did. They didn't have issues. So then we did get more of the handheld games were the more cartoony links. So anything
Ah.
that came out like on the DS and the Nintendo 3DS would be your Minish Cap, which is the one with the bird hat there. Your 2007, which was Spirit Tracks, 2009, all that fun stuff, Oracle Seasons. Yeah, those are your more kiddish links to where the ones that were on the consoles, besides Wind Waker, because Wind Waker was GameCube, the ones that were on the consoles were more of your actual, grown up looking Link.
Hmm.
Uh, the only difference in that is my favorite game, Ocarina. You start the game off as a kid, and then you realize that you physically can't save the world at your current age. So you end up going into the Temple of Time and speeding up 7 years to get to Adult Link, which is my favorite one with the white leggings and everything. So
Hmm.
you can actually come through, wield the Master Sword, and be able to take Ganon. So you actually Link loses 7 years of his life in order to be able to do this, which is what starts the paradox to begin with in the first place, because Zelda feels guilty about it. So then that's where the timeline splits, where she sends him back to be a kid so he can live out his childhood. Then there's the timeline where he just lives out the way he is, and then there's the fall of the hero, and then how that all plays out, which how all those different timelines split to begin with.
A, super neat and cool. B, what the fuck is with the bird hat?
It depends on the game. Wind Waker had something like this too, where it was the ship and it had a dragon head on it, and the dragon head could talk to you and was like your companion. But
Uh-huh.
basically, Link has always had a companion in every game. And this is where you're going to notice the meme, because I know you said you at least heard of it, the "Hey, listen."
Hey, listen. Yes.
Yes, that is Navi. Navi is a little fairy, and I got her picture too. Navi is a little fairy who basically Nintendo wanted to do something different from other games. Usually, whenever you load up a game, the whole first beginning of the game is nothing but tutorial. And either one, people hate fucking drudging through it, and then there's no replay value because they don't want to have to go through the tutorial again. Or
Mm-hmm.
two, they either put something in to skip it. Nintendo just didn't do a tutorial. It's every time you pick up something new and you want to learn how to use it, Navi would go, hey, listen, and you would press a button, and then she would explain how you use it. But where she got annoying for people is that she would do it multiple times whenever you were in the vicinity of where you found the new item.
Oh
So you
no.
would have to get out exactly, and then she would finally stop. And if it was stuff like for your first time ever reading a sign or your first time ever doing this, and it was all next to each other, she'd, hey, listen, hey, listen, hey, listen. And that's where the meme came from.
That's
So she
amazing.
got very annoying. So Link has always had his little sidekick, if you will, in every game. It's just taken various different forms. The bird hat was the form of that, the Minish Cap. It was a magical cap that kind of helped him out throughout the world, and it had that little bird head. So it was basically your Navi, if you will, your little tutorial. So yeah, which I always liked that Nintendo did it that way, because, like I said, tutorials suck sometimes. Like, and then I agree with the aspect of like, I don't want to have to go through the tutorial again, so I'm probably just not going to play the game again after I beat it. To where this one, you can pick it up, go through, and you can just ignore Navi and then just keep doing what you're doing, which is what people normally do, which hence why the meme was created. Like, yeah, I hear you, fuck you. So yeah,
Okay.
but I guess I should have thrown this down a little bit earlier too, as we're kind of discussing Hyrule. So once again, as I told you, it changes And when we get into specific games, we'll have different maps of Hyrule for you to look at.
Mhm.
This one is once again from my favorite because I feel like it kind of has everybody's little breakdown. So we can kind of walk through and I can show you the different races. So obviously we can start, right smack dead in the middle with, well, I guess Lon Lon Ranch is middle, but above it, Castle Town is basically where Hyrule Castle and all that is. You got Zelda and her royal family there. If we move down to Lon Lon Ranch, it's basically where Link obtains, and I know I've talked about this with you on a podcast before, his horse Epona, who is basically the magical horse. She's not
Yeah.
magical, but there's a nice little picture of Link Epona. She looks the same in every game. She never changes.
Now is
Um,
Epona Apona or
E
Epona?
E P O N
Okay,
A.
got it. I will not fuck that up.
So you're good. So yeah, and that was the one where I told you, like, I tried to take it to the stall to get it stalled, so that way I could save, and the horse, I could always call the horse back to that stall if I ever lost it.
Mhm.
And whenever you go to stall a horse, it asks you to name it, and then it stops you from naming it. It's like, hold on, you can't rename the legendary horse Epona. That's got to be like illegal or something. So the game actually stops you.
That's pretty cool.
Anyways, right? It's fucking awesome. So as I said, you got Epona. And as we move around here, we'll go ahead and start with the right. So the Lost Woods is by far my favorite part of the game. It's basically like a whole forest maze. You can get lost, and then it always throws you at the beginning. So it's one of those, like in the older games, it was a memory thing where it's like a trial and error. Like I went left and I got into the next spot. Now I went right. Oh fuck! Now I'm back at the middle. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. I don't go right again. Left and left. Shit like that. To where it's gotten more advanced as the games go on. Like Breath of the Wild, for instance. It was more about you had to try to like move through, and then whenever you would hear rustling in the wind, it meant you were going the wrong way. So you would go back and try to make your way to various torches throughout the forest, but you
Oh,
couldn't see them
cool.
until you got close enough. And then if you did see them and you tried to beeline straight for them, it would bring you back into the wind rustling. And if you went too far, it would engulf you in fog, and then you would wind up back at the beginning.
Oh, neat. So you just kind of had to power through and pay attention.
And what I was trying to get at, and I kind of got sidetracked as well when I was talking about what type of game Zelda is. We talked about the whole fighting and the hacks and slashes and stuff like that. Zelda is known as a huge puzzler game, like huge puzzler game. So every time that you play Zelda, there's normally always four temples. They're always doing the four elements: see, earth, wind, air, and water. With that, you have all these different puzzles. That's where a lot of people end up getting discouraged in these games because sometimes like the puzzles are not easy. You really have
Mhm.
to, and sometimes the puzzles are massive. So it's like you solve this and it does. It's like little you did good noise, but what you don't notice is you still didn't unlock the door you needed to do. There's still like fucking 14 other puzzles over here that all connect to this one in order to unlock this one fucking door. And the reason why people would get so discouraged with Majora's Mask is that in Majora's Mask, and we'll go a little bit more into the reasons why when we get to that game, is you had 3 days to get everything done because the
That
moon
was
was
the
going to
one.
crash. Yep, the moon was going to crash into the earth and destroy everybody. And if you didn't have everything done and stapled through one tower, like let's say you spent all this time in one tower and you were like so close to the end, but you had to get back because you had a specific time you had to be back, and it was midnight, obviously. So midnight on the third day, if you weren't back, the moon's crashing whether you're there or not. But you had to actually go there, climb up the tower, get to the top, and then play the song of reversing time, and it would reverse you back to day one. And anything that you did in this tower, if you didn't actually complete this tower, it was all gone. Your entire progress was done,
Hoo, hoo,
and
hoo,
you had to do it
hoo.
all over again,
That is
all over.
like controller throwing levels of rage.
Hmm. So you had to be very smart about when you did certain things. So moving back over to the map, so we have the Corkery Forest, which is basically almost the starting point of a lot of Zeldas. And in the Corkery Forest, you have what's known as the Corkery Children, and they're these
Um,
nice little elvish children. They're nice.
you're
They're
putting
nice.
an R in there that doesn't appear on this map.
Not on the map.
Are you
Oh, it's
sure?
Kokery. I don't know why I'm saying Corkery. Kokery. Yeah, it's the
Okay.
Kokery. Yeah, the R's at the end, Chris. Duh, dumbass. Okay, anyways, Kokery, the Kokery children. Sorry, people. Sorry. Don't yell at me.
Just didn't want your
Anyways,
face ripped off by the internet.
right, exactly. So you have all the nice little Kokery children, which as you can see, they're all elvish looking. They have like forest-ish type clothes. Even in that picture that I sent you, you can kind of see Link. He's right there with his hands on his head in the middle of everybody, just looking unimpressed. Um,
Bored.
well, see, he used to get picked on because the Kokiri children in Ocarina of Time, at least this was an Ocarina of Time storyline. In Ocarina of Time, Kokiri children get their fairy like that. Link didn't have one, so he looked like a Kokiri child, but he never got his fairy. It wasn't until way
Oh,
later on he gets his fairy, so he would get picked on all the time and stuff like that because he didn't have his fairy.
poor baby.
Once again, we'll go a little bit more into that when we get to Ocarina of Time because that's huge spoilers when we get there. But anyways, so didn't have. I mean, you get your fairy within like the first level, but still, it's basically like this whole thing. We'll get there. So somebody to pay attention to here is the girl in the green hair. Her name is Saria. Um, let me. I got another picture of her specifically. That was kind of like Link's first love interest, if you will. Um, and so there's that whole thing. I'm not going to go too much further into that due to the fact that, once again, spoiler territory for Ocarina of Time. We'll get there, and you'll kind of understand why that didn't, somewhat work out and why he didn't get his fairy right off the bat. But yeah, so that's Saria and the Corkery kids. In the later um, installments, the kids are actually wooden creatures. So that's what they look like in the later installment. They're not actually these little elven kids anymore. They're these little wooden creatures with the leaves and stuff over their face, which personally, in my opinion, I like a lot better because I think they're fucking awesome. And
That
this
looks
kind of started. Go
way
ahead.
fucking creepier.
You think so?
Well, if
Oh, they're
they'd
so cute.
started this way and then turned into children, it wouldn't be creepy. But the fact that they started as children and then turned into these in later versions of the game is way fucking creepier.
Well, I guess what I should say is it was a development choice that the Kokiri children were just going to be these little woodland creatures. Like the kids didn't actually transform into this at some point in the game. It
I,
was just they're like, okay, cool. They were elves in this timeline. This timeline, they're going to be woodland creatures.
I mean, I do think they're cute, but like, oh, it's
It's okay.
just a
I got,
significant
I got.
change.
There's the sealed deal for you. That was the one that started it all. It was Wind Waker, and his name was Makar. And you would find him in secret locations. He was like your little guy that you would find in secret locations, and he always had his little instrument. And he would just be going on and on and on. He's great. I loved it. He was so cool.
A lot of these don't
And
have happy faces. Like, some of them are
no,
smiling, and some of them are just like, I've been pinned through the head. And it's like, yee.
and what's actually cool is whenever you have games like Animal Crossing, for instance, they actually have whenever they do like hidden stuff. A lot of Nintendo games when they go to do like Easter eggs for Zelda, it's usually always like Makar's leaf, his face.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find that in Animal Crossing. I believe you actually even find Link's hat in Animal Crossing as well. Someone, and this is someone that we've brought up before, which I'm finally excited for you to be able to see this character. We brought him up, and you were kind of confused. Someone who wanted to be a Kokiri, but I'm pretty sure he's like in his 40s, maybe 50s. So he's not a Kokiri at all. He's just very, very short man. Um, he would dress like them, and he would go around and be in his little balloon and fly up in the world. And his job was to draw maps, and then he would sell you the maps in game. And his name is Tingle. So here's our good buddy Tingle. Probably, in my opinion, one of the most annoying characters who was ever created in a video game. But yeah, that's Tingle.
Oh, oh my.
Oh,
Oh
my is right.
boy.
Yep. Oh, my is right. That's Tingle.
When you combine that with he desperately wants to be a Kokiri child, um,
Desperately.
yeah, I am not a mother. I do not have maternal instincts, but the ones that I have go off and go, don't leave your kid with this person.
That's fair. That's fair. I wonder if this actually would work the right way. Let's see. But yeah, good old Tingle. You gotta love him. So yeah, he makes the maps. Ah, damn it! It doesn't do it. It's a GIF. I'm fucking twerking, and I was gonna send that to you just to give you more of the creep factor, but it didn't work. Fuck you,
Well,
Slack.
the image that does not twit or yeah,
Twit.
sorry. I was gonna say Twitch, and that's not what I was looking for. The image that does not twerk at me is still upsetting enough. Yeah, the audience is gonna see that. That's terrible. Oh, well,
There we go.
there we go.
I literally typed in Tingle, and it's like the fourth picture, so I had to say it. Oh man, he was actually the one picture that I forgot to get. So as we were discussing him, I was like, "Oh fuck, I gotta grab Tingle real quick." Anyways, so but yeah, so like I said, they end up transforming into those, and a big reason why is because as you'll see on the map there, it says the Deku tree. So the Deku tree is basically for he's in every game, I'm pretty sure. Huge part in most games. Usually he has something to do with the actual forest temple. There's a picture of Link finding the Deku tree for the first time in Ocarina of Time. It's a talking tree. So basically, that's why they kind of made the switch. It didn't make sense that these kid elves were in charge of protecting and keeping the Deku tree a secret
Hmm.
whenever they could turn them more into woodland type creatures. It just made a little bit more sense in my opinion. I could go either way. I didn't have an issue with the Kokiri children, but now that they're these little tree creatures, I like that more because that's kind of shit that I like. I like the whole foresty vibe and stuff like that. It's cool to me. So I'm okay with that.
And the Kokiri children are generally your allies to some degree.
Yes.
Okay.
To some degree, whenever they're not picking on you for not having your fairy. They're good. They're not they're not bad. But then we'll move right on up to the right, and we're gonna hit Zora's Domain. I have so much love for the Zoras, and once again, it falls back to Majora's Mask, and the reason why is because, and this isn't too much of a spoiler alert because you sooner or later seen pictures, but basically in Majora's Mask, you actually end up getting a mask that can turn you into all these different races. So there actually is a Link version of all these races.
Neat.
Those him being in those races, I'll save those pictures for that game. But like to show you, this is what the Deku looked like in there. Majora's Mask. So like the little woodland characters is what they looked like. So you got the princess, the king, the little butler guy. I fucking hated him. He was such a douchebag. And then like two little guards. And what they would do, the guards were so annoying because they would be like flower petals on the ground, and then they would sink into the flowers. And then whenever you got close, they would pop their head out and they would shoot little Deku nuts at you.
The
And Deku
guards
nuts
are
really
so
hit.
freaking adorable, though.
Whenever the Deku nuts hit, they do like a flash and it kind of stuns you for a second. So yeah, dangerous. Dangerous weapons. But yeah. Actually at the top of the King's staff, that is a Deku nut up there.
Oh.
So
And does he
but
whirl it
yeah,
around and
so
smack people with it?
he's just a giant asshole to begin with. That's all there is to that. He's a jackass.
Is he always a
But
jackass?
that's there's a different king in every game. Same
Ah.
thing with all the other races. The king's not always the same. So in my favorite, or well, my second favorite, I guess I should say, yeah, he was a dick. So moving on, we've got so we're going to the Zoras. So these are what the Zoras looked like in Majora's Mask. And the reason why I'm putting them out is because like Majora's Mask after that is kind of like when they made their change.
Hmm.
So you can see they're kind of a fish people. Whenever you're a Zora yourself, you can swim extremely fast. It helps you out to the water temple, stuff like that. The water temple, so a funny inside gaming thing for you. The water temple is also known as the headache temple because you always have to do some stupid shit with current in order to get rooms to open and floors to move. So the water temple is known by gamers as the headache temple. And the last time that I sat down to play like a hardcore Zelda game, uh, whenever I got old enough to do it and stuff like that, I was playing Twilight Princess. And it was funny, my mom bought it for me. She got so mad at me because I beat it in like 24 hours. And she's like, that's the last time I buy you a full price game. Because like I beat the entire thing. She thought it was gonna take me weeks to beat the Zelda game. And I was like, fuck that. I stayed up playing it all night long. And literally I was getting ready. I had my controller on the table because we had this little table in front of the couch. And the next to the controller was a bottle of water and a bottle of Tylenol. Because I was getting ready for the headache temple, and god damn it, do you get that's the only temple that's ever like beaten my ass in the game. Every time I get to a water temple, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be here for a couple hours. Like that shit is rough. They do a really good job of making sure that temple is extremely hard every time you get to it.
I was gonna ask, do they intentionally make that hard here in the later games, or have they tried to be like,
Oh
"No, it won't be terrible"?
no, they want the water temple to live up to its new name for sure. So yeah, they specifically make that the hardest temple. Now, the thing about Zelda is usually you can do the temples in whatever order you want to. So you could save it for the end if you want to, and then be like, oh, I can't get past it, so fuck it, I'm done with this game. Or if you're like, oh, let's see if I like Zelda, you go straight to the water temple, and you're like, this game's too hard. Fuck this, I don't want to play Zelda. So it's really your choice.
Now, if you
So
start a temple, can you back out and be like, "Fuck this noise, I'll come back later when I've got
no,
less of a headache"?
no, you can save inside of a temple in most games, or no,
Mhm.
in all games you can save. But it's just once again, whenever you have a game like Majora's Mask, you have to beat the temple in the time allotted, or you lose all your progress.
Woof. Ugh.
Yeah. And then this is a picture of what the Zoras look like now. So as you can see, we've got the little Zora princess. Link is wearing Zora armor, which is why he looks like one. And then that's kind of like the new prince of the Zoras. I really like the art design of them. I like the old ones a lot. I
Yeah, I
probably
really
say I
like
like
them
the old
both.
ones more, but they're both really really well done. And this is Breath of the Wild right here. So this is the newest Zelda, the one that I just showed
That's
you.
really neat.
Right? Yeah, the artwork is really really awesome with the Zoras. And like I
Yeah.
said, they're basically a water race, so they're really good at swimming and stuff like that. So then now we go back to the map and we are moving on up again to what is actually not named on the map, and I don't know why, but the volcano all the way up there at the top right is Death Mountain, which is also home to Goron Village. And this is what a normal Goron looks like. They are your rock type people, and everybody I'm showing you so far is all like they're I guess you can call them neutral, but they're normally good people. They don't really have like issues with you and stuff like that. The Gorons are like they know they're super fucking strong people. They eat rocks, so and minerals and stuff like that. They love that kind of stuff.
They're
As
super
you can see,
cute.
yeah, his back is all rocky. They can sit there and curl up into a ball and roll around and stuff like that. They're very much kind of like a barbarianish tribe, if you will. That's kind of like how they live their life. Um, yeah, it's pretty fucking interesting. But it's funny because they always like whenever they see you, they call you little bro or little brother or something like that because they know you're not one of them. And they're always like trying to get like Link to eat rocks and stuff like that. And Link's like, dude, I can't fucking do that.
That's so cute. I love it so much.
So this is the actual. Uh, oh, I don't think I actually sent it. Whoops, my bad. Oh yeah, I did. There you go. That's the actual Goron captain in uh, Ocarina of Time. Once again, still good guy, not a bad guy whatsoever. And it's actually funny. The Gorons are probably the nicest people in the game, easily hands down. They're probably the nicest people in the game. Like not many people are dicks to you. We haven't got to the Gerudos yet, but not many people are dicks to you. But they're normally like the nicest people.
They look very snuggly.
Yep, they're pretty fucking awesome, and they always live in the mountain because they can handle the heat. The heat does not bother them from Death Mountain, the volcano, and stuff like that. It doesn't bother them. Okay, and then almost done with the map here, and we can get close to wrapping up for episode 1. So we have the Gerudo Valley leading into the Gerudo Forest, and this is a very interesting race. So the Gerudos, let's see here, are a race of Amazonian women. And something that you will notice as I'm sharing these pictures with you, because I just showed you like a normal. Actually, that was like the main Gerudo chick in Breath of the Wild. This was actually the princess who was becoming queen because the original queen died in Breath of the Wild. But what you'll notice about them is that if you pay attention to their face, and then I'll post his picture again, is that they are the same race as Ganondorf, who is the big baddie. Now, them as a people aren't bad. They're very protective. So basically, they used to be a race of joined male and female, and then they had Ganon was born, who basically, ruled with an iron fist and stuff like that. They ended up getting him out, and since then they see the men as like the evil aspect of the race. So now it is a strictly only woman race. And from what it's told through lores, whether this is canon or not, is that if they want to have the experience of childbirth, they are to leave Gerudo Valley and Fortress. They're allowed to come back, but they are to leave. They are to go find a mate somewhere else, then come back, give birth to the baby, and if it's a child, it's left out to the desert to survive on its own.
You mean if it's a male, it's
If it's
left
a
out?
male child, sorry, yeah, if it's a male child, it's left out to the desert to survive on its own. Once again, that might not be 100% canon, but for all the later installments of the game, there are not even later, all the installments of the game, there are only Gerudo women. You've only ever seen Ganondorf as the only Gerudo male.
Huh. That's kind of
So
interesting.
they're super nice. And so this is what I said about earlier whenever you ask if Link has ever been a woman, you actually do cross dress in the latest game in order to get into the Gerudo city because they literally don't even let males in there.
Yeah, if you're a guy, you're not invited at all.
They throw you out. Yep.
Interesting.
Hmm.
And so the fish people, I mean, you've mentioned that there's an elemental part to this game, and there's each of the four elements you have to go and battle a temple and stuff like that. And I obviously understand the Zoras are the fish people. These
Hmm.
look like the Gerudos look like they're the kind of the fire people, and the oh shoot, what was the name of the earth people?
The Goron.
The Goron. So
Mhm.
are the Kokiri then the air?
So the Gerudo aren't actually tied down to a specific element.
Oh,
They're
okay.
always on the desert. So the fire people would actually be the Gorons.
The fire
Earth is
people.
normal. Yep.
Mm.
Fire people are the Gorons, and then Earth is normally always symboled as green. So that's where it's in the woods.
Okay.
Mhm.
So then do we have air people?
So that's actually funny. In all the older games, because they just made a game called Skyward Sword, which actually deals with the air and stuff. And all the older games, they actually only ever used threes. So it was like a rule of threes: Triforce, three sides; goddesses, three goddesses; elements, three elements. So it was fire,
Oh.
earth, and water.
Oh.
So they never included air until the recent games. The recent games they've started including it, and
Neat.
that's they actually have an air race, which I don't have pictures of because I am stupid and forgot about them. But they're called the Rudra, and I will look at them. But basically, as you can probably guess, they are bird people, and they look pretty cool. Like I said, they are definitely a new addition to Zelda. They are not they're not in any of the older lore or anything like that. So Breath of the Wild, I think, is where you see them the most. Before that, it would have been Skyward Sword. There were some of them because, like I said, they just started getting into that. So, but yeah, so that's kind of the breakdown of the map right there. A lot of the Rudras and stuff. Their stuff is either one in cliffs or two cities in the sky. I think they're called Rudra. So I'm having a hard time finding them now. Maybe they're not. What do they call it? The Rito. Okay, I'm sorry, not Rudra. I don't know where the fuck I got Rudra from. The Rito are bird people. So, let's see here. Here we go. Here's a good, nice little breakdown of a lot of them. But yeah, so the Rito are the people of the sky, and then, like I said, in the later on installments, that's whenever you actually start getting them and start doing more like sky quests and stuff like that, which was pretty fun, especially for Breath of the Wild. I thought that was really fun and really cool. But yeah, they're pretty cool characters. Once again, just like every other race, they're neutral. They're not hostile towards you or anything like that. They can completely use their arms to fly. I mean, they are full on humanoid looking birds.
That's really neat. It also looks like there's kind of a variety of physical appearance to these birds, which is kind of cool.
Oh yeah. What's actually cool is in Breath of the Wild, there's actually a quest for you to do, and it is basically there's these children, these girls, and they're songbirds. So you get them to this place to open up this temple, and it has to be done by hearing the song of the winds. And so you get them to practice their song by the temple, and that's what actually opens up the temple.
Oh, neat.
So they're doing their little songbird thing. But yeah, so that is the Rito, and that should cover all the races of Zelda. That is all the different types of people. That is one version of the Hyrule map. Once again, like I said, we'll get an updated map every time we go to a new one. This one was my favorite, so I chose this one because it did a nice layout of each one of the places so we could go through all the different races. But once again, obviously, Ritos were not a thing back then, so I did not have them.
Is fast travel allowed in most of the games?
That's why you have Epona. But whenever you get into the more open world one, like Breath of the Wild, there were specific spots where you could fast travel, yes.
Got it.
But that's basically why you have Epona in the earlier games, is to make travel a lot faster. Because that map looks big, but whenever you have a horse, like you can get from fucking the Lost Woods to Hyrule Castle in like fucking 5 seconds. Like Epona's fast as fuck. So Breath of the
Neat.
Wild still quicker to fast travel, or use your little parasol that you have, or whatever the hell that is, your little glider that you can glide with.
Yeah, it looks like a paraglider.
Yeah, paraglider. There you go. Yeah, you can use one of those. But the issue with that is one, you'll miss out on encounters if you're fast traveling. So you might be low on weapons, or low on food, or low on whatever. And then there's no leveling up in this game, and that's what I like about Zelda a lot. To where, like Final Fantasy, you can grind out levels, and then sooner or later, it's more about overpowering what's in front of you. So where
Mhm.
Zelda, you have puzzles, and then on top of that, everything is set at a base stat. So it will be the same difficulty every time you go through it, unless you pick a harder difficulty. There's no leveling up. Like Link doesn't actually gain levels. It's not a thing.
Okay.
So it's more about understanding how an enemy fights, learning their patterns, learning how to move around that, and what to use against them at specific times and why.
Oh, see, here's the thing. I've had people recommend various games to me. Are my close friends know I love puzzles. I am constantly doing puzzles and I love puzzle games. Nobody has ever recommended Zelda to me, going, hey, it's a puzzle game. You'll love it. It's an adventure puzzle game. And all of
Yeah.
my friends, I am now very disappointed, guys, because you guys play this. You know me. What the crap?
I think you would be a big fan of Zelda because I know you like the RPG aspect, with things like Mass Effect,
Yes.
how quick you were able to jump into Final Fantasy and have fun with that. So I don't doubt that you would like Zelda at all. I definitely think it would be more. I have the collector's edition. I have multiple copies of the collector's edition. I have to bring one with me next time, and you can have it. But I have a collector's edition because you have a Wii, right? You still have a Wii.
I have a Wii U.
Okay, Wii U doesn't take GameCube games, does it? Yes, I think
I think it does. I will check with my husband who
if
actually
it
knows
does,
this
I have
stuff.
the collector's edition, and it has all the games from like the old school Pixel ones up to uh, Wind Waker. So all the way up to 2001. It has all of those on that, and I've got multiple copies because back whenever the game came out, my dad was like, "Oh, this is going to be worth a lot of money." Both my dad and my mom, and they bought like multiple copies, and it is worth a lot of money. But unfortunately, my dad got into that phase where keeping video game cases weren't cool, and got rid of all the cases and put the disc in a little disc thing. So now they don't have cases, so now they're worth nothing.
So
So I've
yeah.
got like 6 of them. So yeah, I'll give one to you, and then if you ever want to try out Zelda, you got the whole first beginning of it. So I recommend Ocarina of Time. I do. I know it's my favorite, and I'm biased, but I think it's a good starting off point. And from a lot of people who got new into Zelda, also started there, and it was a really good experience
Yeah.
because it was kind of like where Zelda hit its stride. Once again, it was the game of the year, and it was all tens all the way across the board. So that's whenever that became like a popular thing. And there's stuff that you can do in there that you might not even know was a fucking thing. Like it's crazy. Like for instance, whenever I first played through, I got this hilt called the Goron sword, and this has nothing to do with the story. But I got hit this hilt that was called the Goron sword, and I just was like, "Oh, cool! This is just like a little collector item." And back in this day, you couldn't look things up. And I was really young, so looking things up, like unless you were rich at that point and had a computer, I didn't have a computer. So all my stuff, I had to go to the library and stuff like that. And I remember my dad, he had started it, and then I had ended up jumping on the train as well. But he had this binder where he would have, like cheat codes and stuff for games because back then that was the thing. You get
Mm-hmm.
cheat. And I went and was looking through stuff, and everybody was talking about the Bigoron sword, and I was like, I don't remember that sword being in that game. And it turned out it was that hilt. Well, there's like a slew of side missions that you can do, and and Zelda. Let me put this out there for anybody that's played it. Does not babysit you. Zelda is not a babysitting game. We're there to play the game. That is it. Navi will tell you when you're doing something new. Other than that, babe, it does not. There's no map. There's no, besides what's written that you can find online like this. None of this exists in the game. It does not babysit you at all. It expects you to play the game and figure shit out on your own, like 100%. So this Bigoron sword, you could get the item, but in like a game these days where it'd be like, you've started a quest to finish the Bigoron sword.
Go here,
Had
go
no
here, go
idea that
here.
was something. Yep, no idea it was something you can do. I was talking to some dude that was asking me if I could go gather up his chickens. I was talking to some witch that got hurt in the fucking forest. If I could go get a fucking potion, I ran all over the fucking map to do this, all to gain special pieces to make this fucking sword whole again. And it was huge. And it's not like a game-ending sword or anything because nothing beats the Master Sword. So it was just like if you wanted to do it and you luckily found a piece of it, it was there. Other than that, it does not babysit you. I remember, I'll never forget, we went to this rich kid's house, and I don't mean to say that all rich people are spoiled because it's not true, but these kids are definitely spoiled. And I'll never forget, they were playing Twilight Princess, and the kid got frustrated with it immediately because like he's like, it's not telling me where to go, it's not telling me this, not telling me that. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I hadn't played it yet, and I was like, because it just came out, and I was like, man, dude, I was like, you get to that point where it's like you want everything just given to you, and now he got to a point where a game is just like, fuck you, figure it out. And the kid was like, I'm not playing this. My dad can take this back. And I was like, wow. And Twilight Princess is noted as like one of the best Zelda games out there besides Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And so it's a good game. It's a great game, but it was just funny because it's like, yeah, no, it's not giving me what I want. So fuck this game. I'm done with it. I mean, I played it for like 10 minutes. I was like, nope. It doesn't tell me where to go. It doesn't tell me what quest to do. It just expects me to figure it out. I don't have time for that. Okay. Good for you.
I've got a question for you, and this may not be one you can answer now. Why is the game named Zelda?
So Zelda, I mean, there's probably many different schools of thought on this one, and I don't think it's ever been come out and said exactly why the game is named Zelda. In my opinion, the way Nintendo did it was like, Zelda is quest. This is your normal, the princess is captured, you have to save her, stuff like that. And as it started moving forward, they noticed that like Zelda wasn't as useless as they kept making her out to be. And so what was cool is in later games and even Breath of the Wild, like Zelda in Breath of the Wild, Ganon comes back and he's known as the Calamity. And he's got this massive power that can just destroy all of Hyrule. But she has him contained into the castle because that's where he started. So Link, without getting too much into it, is basically gone for 100 years. 100 years, he's gone. And then he comes back. This entire time, Zelda has used her magic to keep Ganon contained into this castle until Link can do what he needs to do around Hyrule to get everybody ready to launch the final attack against Ganon. And then whenever he gets there, they both work together to take Ganon out. Like, she is a badass. Zelda is a fucking beast. Actually, somebody that I don't even think that I showed you yet, because technically they're not really a race, more like a band of people, like ninjas, for instance, is mostly clown to. But this is Impa, and she is actually hired to protect Zelda as she's a child. Their people are called the Sheik, and they are very strong, very good at stealth and stuff like that. You see, she's got that gigantic katana on her side. Like,
Yeah.
she's a badass. In my opinion, Impa's probably the strongest character in the game, but she just never goes and fights Ganon because of plot. But Impa's probably the strongest character in the game, honestly. Like, she is a beast. So that's who Zelda learns all her fighting and stuff from, is Impa.
That's
So
awesome.
on that same note, Zelda's a fucking badass. So yeah, no, it's really really cool, and they had a lot of people, you know, especially like a lot of young girls and stuff that was like, I would love to be able to play as Impa, or I'd love to be able to play as Zelda. And so they made this game, and they're actually redoing another one called Hyrule Warriors, where it's a hack and slash game, but you get to choose from any of the characters versus always having to be Link.
That's fantastic.
Play as Impa, you can play as Zelda, you can play as any of them. Like Smash Bros, for instance, Zelda's an actual fighting playable character. Like Peach, you know, like, or in my opinion, Peach is a little bit more cartoonish with, you know, pulling out a golf club or a frying pan or a toad. Like Zelda actually has like her sword, her fucking bow and arrow. She can teleport. She can turn into a sheik, stuff like that. But anyways, back to your question. I just think that they were very on the nose of like Zelda is quest.
Hmm.
So the Legend of Zelda. And we'll get a little bit more further into that and make a little bit more sense in the next episode whenever you
Okay.
start learning a bit more. But yeah, it will make sense in the next episode on a little bit more why it's called The Legend of Zelda. But as of right now, I think it's the best way I can do it without spoiling anything is that Zelda is basically quest.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want me to know in this kind of setup framework episode?
Oh, I think that about covers it. I'm just running over my pictures right quick. Yep, nope, I showed you everything. So yeah, that was pretty much it for the creation-ish aspect. So what we just went through, the very beginning of this is called the creation era. So we covered 1,000 years ago because they always pivot off of Ocarina of Time. 1,000 years before Ocarina of Time was the creation era. We had the three gods come down. They made Hyrule, left the Triforce with Helea, and the goddess Helea, and that is the creation, and it immediately goes into the next step, which I wanted to more go over Hyrule and what it is, the people it has, what they look like, who they are, so that way as we go into these quests and go into these games, you'll already know who we're talking about.
Wonderful. All right, then that's going to do it for our first class on Zelda. Chris, I want to thank you so much for coming and teaching us. I'm so excited that we're starting this semester. I have heard so many things about Zelda, never played it, always wanted to. I know even Robin Williams named his daughter Zelda after these games and how much he liked the character. So I'm
Again,
excited that we get to jump into this and I get to learn more. If you enjoyed any of this content, please like and subscribe. That's a huge way to help us. We're still a young and early channel, and it would be great if you would do those things. It would just help us grow. Send us your friends. Send us to that person that's always wanted to know about Zelda, but you've tried telling them and they don't pay attention. Well, you know what? It's quarantine. They're stuck at home anyway. They can watch our content and so can you. Turn on those notifications and please come and interact with us in the comments below. We have Twitter links down there, we have Twitch links down there, but we will see you in our next class of Dead Funny University. Bye, friends.